right, Shalom, Shalom, Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to our apostles and elder bishops here at Great Millstone. Shalom to you brothers who are pushing the work. All right, with all sincerity. All right, bringing forth the testimony of our Lord Yahweh Shai in these last and evil days. That testimony is the spirit of prophecy. Prophecy meaning to say before. All right, and this lesson here is just showing you, the MOTB was always a real thing. Of course, you got to have the spirit of discernment. You got to be able to connect the dots. You got to know your enemy. It ain't just, there's more to it than just saying the MOTB is the RFID chip. You got to watch how your enemy is moving. All right. And and that's the purpose, man. Jake is not in the spirit, all right, of, watching. Okay. All right. And today, what we're going to go into is tokenizing of real world assets. How this ultimately, could lead to them digitizing every resource in the world. Now, I did ask chat. We're going to use chat for this. All right. To point out some things to, I asked it to draw me up a scenario, and yeah, again, this thing is very important. Here, let me get this Isaiah 62. All right, because we're coming into a time where we got to understand what's going on in our world and how it affects us. Okay, and that's why the Lord says here, all right, Isaiah 62:6, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, keep not silence. All right, and give him no rest till he establish, until he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. All right, and so that's what Jake is supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be screaming to the top, all right, of every street about what's to come, revealing the wicked, as Second Thessalonians, the second chapter goes into, okay, and consuming him with the spirit of the Lord's mouth, which are these words, all right, the judgments and all the things that's written. Okay, now there's so many signs pointing to, the finality of what Esau, what he really wants to do. All right, because they know for certain that they're in order for their world to continue, they have to detach from the principles of the Almighty and the things that the Lord had set as a standard. All right, because the scriptures say Esau, what they want their houses to continue forever. Let's see if we can get that. If I'm even quoting it right. All right, let me see. They want their houses to continue forever, man. All right, they want to establish their version of the kingdom of heaven here on earth. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Oh, their houses continue. Let's see if it comes up. Yep. Psalms 49:11, it says, their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. And that's Esau to a T. And you think he's not mobilizing and trying to bring forth, this the aspiration of living forever, all right, establishing his way on earth, becoming immortal through his technology. And those are just some of the things we talk about, transhumanism. Okay, those are the things that they talk about every day, and they putting money towards research. Okay, and they're gaining ground, so to speak, and have been gaining ground. Now, all that's left to do is to what? To tokenize, and we're going to go into tokenization. Okay, in which brother here, the younger bro, Uriah, all right, in our camp, all right, posted the term last week, and it was just on my spirit to kind of go into it because I've seen I was in the spirit of trying to connect dots, all right, and that's, I mean, and you're supposed to be like that, trying to draw things out, you know. Now, only if it makes sense, though. But anyway, the brother posted that information, and I want to go into it. And it just shows you that, Esau is gaining more ground. Okay. And it's quite obvious what he wants to accomplish. When you do further examination. So the word tokenization here, let's see here. All right. And so it is the process of breaking something complex into smaller, manageable units called tokens. So it can be understood, processed, or secured more effectively. The meaning depends on the field you're looking at. But the core idea is the same: division for control and interpretation. All right? Keep that in mind. Division for control and interpretation. Now, blockchain and economics, asset tokenization. And this is the point here. All right, this is alluding more to the point that I'm getting into. Tokenization means converting real world assets into digital tokens. Okay. All right. So it says here land ownership, digital token, gold blockchain token, voting rights, digital token. See, that's crazy. Your voting right becomes a digital token. That's wild. But that's the world we're going into. It says why it's used: fractional ownership, easier transfer, transparent tracking. Okay. That's the justification. Okay. It's going to be easier, more convenient. All right. And you can't lose it. But you're not going to own it. All right. So I'm going to just take from that. All right. This is how tokenizing works with billionaires in digital-based currency. At this level, tokenization is a financial and control mechanism, not just a technical process. Core idea: tokenization converts real value into programmable digital units, allowing wealth to be moved instantly, divided infinitely, tracked continuously, controlled by rules. Billionaires don't primarily use digital currency like everyday users do. They use tokenized systems layered on top of traditional power structures. But they're gonna get rid of the traditional power structure. All right, which is dealing in paper currency. And what kind of supports that? This right here. All right, Executive Order 14247. And it's all right, modernizing payments to and from America's bank account. All right, by authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered the continued use of paper-based payments by the federal government, including checks and money orders flowing into and out of the United States general fund, which might be thought of as America's bank account, imposes unnecessary costs, delays, and risks of fraud, lost payments, theft, and inefficiencies. Mail theft complaints have increased substantially since the C-19 pandemic. Historically, Department of Treasury checks are 16 times more likely to be reported lost or stolen. All right, because they always give you an excuse why they're doing the changeover. Okay, so return undeliverable or altered than an electronic funds transfer (EFT). Okay, maintaining the physical infrastructure and specialized technology for digitizing paper records cost the taxpayer over $657 million in fiscal year 2024 alone. This order promotes operational efficiency by mandating the transition to electronic payments for all federal disbursements and receipts by digitizing payments to the extent permissible under applicable law, but not for avoidance of doubt, to establish a central bank digital currency. Which is, why do you always do that? They always tell you what they're not going to do, but they end up doing it. Okay. And that's why you have to watch these devils. All right. Because they might say that, and then you're going to believe what they say. Oh, they're not going to, this is not for the purpose of establishing a central bank digital currency. But when you connect the dots, all right, and you understand the end game, then you understand and then you got to put on top of that they're the devil. Okay. The devil means deceiver. Okay. And that's why it's important to understand, man, this is not a game, and you got to be able to discern what's going on through spirit. You got to, and that means what? You got to know what their agenda is fully. All right. And yeah, you judge based on who they are. Okay. The devil. All right. So going back here, said billionaires don't and then we find out ChatGPT be lying too. All right. They set it up to lie because they going after wokeism, especially in these platforms too. Okay. All right. Billionaires don't primarily use, and I'm not talking about wokeism as in LGBTQA rights and nothing like that. Wokeism really goes back to exposing truth. Okay. And this devil is trying to get rid of that. So it says billionaires don't primarily use digital currencies like everyday users do. They use tokenized systems layered on top of traditional power structures. Okay. Asset tokenization, how large wealth is digitized. Billionaires hold wealth mostly in assets, not cash. Companies, land, commodities, intellectual property, debt instruments. Tokenization converts these into digital representations. Okay, so you understand. A $1 billion building split into 1 million digital tokens. So for every token, all right, is a share of, let's see, what's because that's a million. What's 1% of a billion is what? 10 million, right? If my math is correct, right? Even it says each token represents a legal or economic rights. Okay, profit share, voting power, collateral value. So based upon how many digital tokens you have toward that asset, depends on how much how much rights you have. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. It's somewhat making sense to me. Okay, they break it down into essentially a token is a right. A token is a right, just like your license. All right, is a privilege. Okay, if you get it. It says why this matters. Assets become liquid, easier to sell. Ownership becomes fractional. Control can remain centralized even if ownership is dispersed. Okay, keep that in mind. This allows billionaires to raise capital without selling control, move value without traditional scrutiny, leverage assets globally. Okay, tokenization. All right, plus digital currency, money as code. Digital currencies, especially CBDCs and stablecoins, are programmable money. This is the major shift. Traditional money, neutral medium. Once you have it, you decide how to use it. Tokenized digital money contains rules, can be time limited, location restricted, purpose restricted, reversible. You see? And this is the control that they're going to be exercising when they go online with this digital system fully. Token can be coded to expire, be spendable only on approved items, be frozen instantly, be traced permanently. For billionaires, this is not about restriction, it's about precision control. All right. And when you read the scriptures, that's exactly what the elite want. All right. Why billionaires favor tokenization and control without visibility. Tokenization allows off balance sheet movement, complex ownership structures, layered intermediaries that obscure true control. The public may see distributed ownership while decision power remains concentrated. So, infinite leverage, it says tokenized assets can be collateralized repeatedly, rehypotheticated digitally, traded across jurisdictions instantly. This allows wealth to multiply influence without multiplying labor or production. There you go. They're killing the labor and production. All right. Man. Governance by infrastructure. Tokenized systems shift power from laws to systems, courts to code, governments to platforms. Uh-oh. Whoever designs the system defines access, defines limits, defines permissions. Billionaires fund and shape these systems. And look at the systems that we already have, the platforms that we already have. Okay. And that's why a lot of people are going to start getting in trouble for what you say on these platforms, because these government entities own these platforms. Okay. And due to tokenization, they're going to be able to essentially do what they want. And your right is going to come to you in the form of tokens, however they play that out. Okay. Social credit score, what have you. Blockchain versus centralized tokenization. Important distinction. Blockchain versus centralized tokenization. Public blockchain, example given Bitcoin style, limited control, transparent, resistant to censorship. All right. And that's why everybody can buy it. So, and everybody knows about it. So, centralized or permissioned token systems, and this is what we're coming into, full control by user, can be modified at will, often tied to banks, governments, or corporate consortia. Most billionaire scale tokenization happens in the second category. All right. 5, digital currencies as a behavioral tool. At scale, tokenized money can influence spending habits, economic participation, access to markets, compliance behavior. This is why tokenization is often paired with digital identity, credit scoring, ESG metrics, social or regulatory compliance frameworks. Money becomes conditional, not neutral. See? And it's good to know all of these things because it prepares you for what you're going to have to deal with. All right. A completely washed system into something just ugly. And it's going to be ugly because they're going to be controlling people based on, ideology, and it's going to, boy, if you can see how the small hats, tiny hats are moving, right? They want to have this type of control, these type of controls. Okay. So it says faster movement, tighter control, deeper leverage, less accountability. Digital currency is not just money online. It is money with instructions. See? Okay. Whoever controls the token standards, the platforms, the rule sets, controls the system regardless of who owns the tokens. If you want, next is step by step. Okay, so I asked it, is there a tokenizing of every resource in the world happening right now? Short answer, no. But some resources and assets are being tokenized already, and interest is growing fast. It's not that everything in the world is currently tokenized, but many kinds of assets are already being turned into digital tokens. All right, and the idea is spreading. What is being tokenized today? Tokenization means creating a digital token, often on a blockchain, that represents ownership or value of something real. So you're going to be taking partial ownership of something. Okay. So it's just a breakdown of the assets into tokens. Assets already in tokenization projects, financial assets, treasury funds, bonds, and securities are being tokenized by major institutions. And that's heavy. Here's the article, 2025 Trends in Real World Asset Tokenization. Okay. So they can do this, put it on the blockchain and distribute it through digital currency, which, or you could say tokens. Okay. But basically what you're going to see is that this is creating a system where nobody owns anything. And like Klaus Schwab said, you will own nothing and be happy. Watch the breakdown. Real estate properties can now be fractionalized into tokens, right? That's why you're going to have so many partners who own an asset, right? Tokens that represent small ownership shares. Okay, commodities and natural resources, precious metals like gold and agriculture or resource-based goods are being converted into tradable tokens. Carbon credits and IP. Okay, and understand too, token, which is I believe is going to get more into, is a right. Okay, they're defining it as a right. Okay, carbon credits and IP. Emerging areas include carbon credits and intellectual property rights, collectibles, and art. High value items and collectibles are increasingly tokenized to allow fractional ownership. These efforts improve liquidity and access, meaning people can own tiny pieces of big assets that were previously hard to trade. And watch the kicker, though. All right, I'm gonna read this anyway. All right, just to show you chat be lying, and it tells on itself. All right, but again, you just gotta have discernment. This is what I initially asked it. Is every resource being tokenized right now? No, far from it. Tokenization is still in early stages of adoption. The total value of tokenized real world assets is growing, but still a small fraction of the total global economy. But we know ultimately Esau, he wants to globalize this thing, giving life unto the image. All right. This is a global thing. Okay. And we're looking at part of his image. Okay. And how the standard is going to be concerning everything in your world is going to be digitized. Okay. So it says regulatory, legal, and technological challenges make widespread tokenization complex. Not all resources, especially things like water rights, entire ecosystems, or full national resource bases, are being digitized as tokens yet. But they will, especially the elite. And that token becomes what? It becomes a right. Now, see how that, and you got to be able to visualize how that would work in a social credit system based economy. All right. Where you're going to be rewarded and punished for things you say, ultimately thoughts that you put on these platforms, which are going to be governed. Okay. And that's what they want to do. They want to govern you because everything has went digital. All right. Everything has went online. And so they're going to govern you, your online person, as if you were in real world. Okay. And that's why it makes it so diabolical, because the internet should have been it was a place to freely, express yourself. Okay. But they made that a snare and a trap. Okay. So let's move on. It says, and a big word yet. Okay. As you see, especially things like water rights, entire ecosystems, or full national resource bases are being digitized as tokens yet. Big word. That means it's in the process of. And what I did was, since, you got to be 2 steps ahead, okay, of, who. All right. I just asked the question based on, it's a scenario based question. based on what we ultimately understand is the outcome and the finality of all things concerning, Esau, Edom. All right. So it says that the idea that everything will be tokenized someday is a trend or prediction in finance. And I'm predicting that it will be. It'll be globalized. All right. And everything will their intent or their enterprise is to tokenize every resource here on Earth. That way they can monitor every resource. All right. It says in finance and tech, discussions not a present reality. So they're talking about it in finance and tech discussions. We know that the finance sector and the tech sector, they're taking over everything, especially the technocrats, because they all technocrats. They all bought into the New World, agenda. Not a present reality. Many experts project big future growth, but that doesn't mean it's already done. All right. What experts predict versus reality? Predictions, some forecasts suggest tokenized assets could grow into the trillions of dollars by the end of the decade. Visionaries in the blockchain space, it make it seem like they're prophets or some shit. It says, talk about applying tokenization to nearly any tradable thing. You see? Visionaries. See? And ultimately, try to tell on himself. Okay? From land to art to resource rights. That's what society is leading to. All right? They're not giving you ownership. They're giving you the right to. All right? And ultimately the right to be a human being is going to be taken away from many. And they're going to say you're not, you can't. You don't fit the new world as we project it or as we see it. All right. Current reality, only specific assets and markets have meaningful tokenization so far, and mostly in pilot projects or niche financial projects or products. Excuse me. Many tokenized assets are still legally tied to traditional ownership systems rather than being fully on-chain equivalents. And what we know is that they're going to crash the current ownership system. They're gonna do away with ownership. We know that through Rex 84. Elder Apostle Elder Gabar came out, and all the apostles I've heard them speak on it. And many tokens. Okay, so yeah, they ultimately they don't want anybody to own anything. That's what it's really boiling down to. That Revelations 13 and 16. Okay. And when you look at and examine Revelations 13, 15 on down, it's speaking of a system of control. All right. And we're talking about full control. All right. Because if you don't take part in this system, in this, in the worship, all right, of the image of the beast, okay, it can kill you. And it can kill you in any way, because that's the breakdown of the word kill, right? We'll read it. Revelation 13:15, he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, is what we're reading. Part of is the image, okay? The standard, the way of life, how society is being ran. It's part of the image. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause it that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. All right. In other words, you ain't gonna have no rights. You're gonna be cut off. So the word here for killed,
Strong's G 615, apactino,
to kill in any way, whatever, to destroy, to allow to perish. Okay. And in Revelation 13, 15 on down, is speaking to a system that has absolute control. Okay. And what we're seeing in this is how we line it up. What we're seeing is that there's already talks among the techies and the finance guys about tokenizing everything. And a token is essentially a right. Okay. So the tokens break down the assets with a central piece of a central ideal to it, or a centralized rule to it. Okay, if that makes sense, Lord willing, that makes sense. Okay, and so everybody that has a token, you have somewhat of a right, but they can actually cut that. All right, which I believe I went into earlier, but it might resurface. So let's continue. Salaki, to extinguish, abolish, to inflict mortal death, to deprive of spiritual life, and procure eternal misery. And they got the right to do whatever they want with you. All right, to cut you off, to starve you, do whatever. If you don't bow to this image or this way of life that they're going to be imposing on everybody. All right, so. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, which is going to be an RFID chip. Okay, because that's for what they foresee. They want that to be the tool to where you can access all of these different rights. Okay, in the new world that they're creating. So it says. Right, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell. Right, because by how can I say this? When they allocate, all right, all the resources in the world, when they tokenize, because it says yet, right? They didn't tokenize everything yet. As it says it's right here. Not all resources, especially things like water rights, entire ecosystems, or full national resource bases, are being digitized as tokens yet. So yet. But when they expand that control, when they take absolute control, they'll basically be able to tell. You basically won't be able to buy anything outside of them. All right. You're not going to be able to get anything outside of them. All right. That's why it's important to understand, the gravity of Revelations. All right. The 13th chapter. All right. Especially the 15th verse on down. And in fact, really from verse 11 all the way down, All right. So the bottom line, let's make sure we read all of this. Yep. The bottom line, tokenization is real and growing. Financial markets, real estate, commodities, and even carbon credits are being represented as digital tokens. Not all resources are tokenized. The idea of everything tokenized is more of a long-term vision than a present fact. Okay. Well, ultimately, it is showing you that, and that's what they're expecting in the future. Okay. Progress depends on law, tech, adoption, legal clarity, and infrastructure are key barriers to broad tokenization. And a lot of those barriers are going to be cut due to generated crises. And they're going to emergency. That's the tone to which they're going to be speaking, and they're going to bring in. They're going to they're going to reestablish a whole different system. All right. So I asked it another question. Give me a scenario of tokenizing being weaponized. That's what it's supposed to say by the elite class, ultimately for control. Is this possible in real time? It says yes, it is possible in real time, and it does not require a conspiracy or sudden takeover. It works through infrastructures or infrastructure incentives and gradual normalization. Below is a plausible, realistic scenario showing how tokenization could become weaponized by an elite class without violence and without most people noticing. Real-time plausible scenario, weaponized tokenization for control, phase 1, legitimate entry, no resistance. All right. In global or regional crises, financial instability, climate emergency, cybercrime, supply shock. We're hearing much of that in the news right now. Okay. Response, governments plus large financial institutions roll out tokenized assets, digital currencies, digital identity, efficiency reforms. Public framing, faster payments, right? So this is what they're going to push to the public. Faster payments, fraud reduction, financial inclusion, climate accountability. Nothing here looks tyrannical. Phase 2, tokenization of necessities, silent shift. Essential resources become token represented. Money, digital tokens, energy credits, tokens, housing access tokens, food distribution tokens, transportation tokens. You no longer own the resource. You own permission tokens that grant access. Important shift ownership, all right, to conditional access. And you think the elite don't want that? They're salivating at the mouth right now because that's exactly what they want. Phase 3. Because remember, Habakkuk 2 and 5 says it, you know. They want to gather unto them all people. Okay? Habakkuk 2 and 5, yea, also because he transgresses by wine, and we're seeing the wine by which he's transgressing. You know, tokenization is just, an ideal. It's a device. Okay? He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathered unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. That's the point. The scripture is not saying it for no reason. It's so that you identify. The Lord is clearly tracking, what these devils are going to be doing. The wicked, what they're going to be doing. Phase 3, programmable constraints, control without force. Tokens now include rules. And I guess I'm how tokenization, all right, applies to the chip. All right, some along the lines of the beast system or something like that. I don't know. But let's continue. Phase 3, programmable constraints, control without force. That's why that's why it's a mark. All right. That's why it's gonna be a mark. All right. Here, let's see this. Revelation 13. Let's go to 17. I just want the word mark here. Save he that had the mark, charagma, a stamp and printed mark. Charagma.
Strong's G 5480. Charagma. Charagma.
All right. A stamp and imprinted mark. Okay. Because that's essentially what it is. All right. They're going to mark you or brand you. Okay. Which I believe it says that. Yep. It says it right there. on the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the Antichristo. The mark branded upon horses. Okay. Right. So it's brand. It's a branding of ownership. Okay. And this is what the elite want. They want complete ownership. Okay. It says the thing carved, sculptured, graven work or of idolatrous images. All right. As a badge of servitude. Okay. And that's you opting. When you opt into the system, however they may do it, you submitting your biometrics, to get a digital ID. All right. That's a form of them branding you. That's a form of, and especially when that chip comes. Okay. And that's how it's going to work. All right. How else are you going to be able to access it? Except they putting something in under your skin that ties you to their world, their digital world. Okay. That's what Revelation is going into. All right. They're going to have to tie you to the digital world, and they're going to do it by merging you with their technology, by merging you with a chip. All right.